It's still 8 crazy days. So they shoot for 3 days. They're
Right.
allowed approximately 12-hour days. We're still trying to preserve some sense of economy. On the fourth day, you deliver your rough cut. On the fifth day, you deliver your fine cut. Sixth day, it's like
Wow.
your locked cut. Then you go into online editing, and then you deliver on day eight. Yeah, and in terms of the in-kind support, it's like the industry up here really does get behind like all the teams. Like all of the major funders, the Directors Guild of Canada is still our presenting sponsor. And Telefilm Canada, they're our main federal funding body here for like film and stuff. And Creative BC, which is like the provincial, our state version of that, they fund us. All of the unions and guilds are behind us. There's about at least like 50K in kind, like gear and services, including legal clearances and all that help out each team.
Good day, Grace Chin, Executive Director of Crazy8s. Grace, how are you today?
I am great. How are you?
I am fantastic, although seasonal allergies are hitting me a little hard. If you see me sneezing on here, nothing you're doing. It's just something in the air that's got my nose going crazy.
It could also be something that I'm doing. We'll let that pass.
Maybe so. Crazy8s is coming up in a few days. So it's an 8-day filmmaking challenge that provides support and funding to emerging and mid-career British Columbia based filmmakers. So let's start there. Can you tell people what Crazy8 is and how you got involved in it?
Yeah, for sure. Crazy8s actually originally started in 1999 by
Oh wow.
local members in British Columbia of the Directors Guild of Canada. So they had gone down to Seattle for some reason, and they were like, they saw something pretty similar down there. And they were like, why don't we have anything like that up here? So they did the first one. It started off as an 8-day challenge. They gave you 800 feet of film because back then it was still film, like
Oh
actual
cool.
celluloid. They give bucks, $800, um, and to produce approximately 8-minute film in
Okay.
8 days. And then after they would screen it at a place, they screened it locally here in the Alibi Room, and it was a good excuse to burn short film ends, and drink some beer and forget about it. Yeah, and it went over so well that they just
That's
kept doing
awesome.
it. They just kept doing it. And then sometime in the 2000s, they became a not for profit up here in BC. So now it's the Crazy8s Film Society.
Okay.
And the program just kept growing in terms of the support that it offered to filmmakers. $800 became 1,000. Now it's $2,000.
That's
Um,
awesome.
it's still the 8 crazy days, but now pretty much you can shoot like endless amounts of stuff on tape as long as you remember that it's still 8 crazy days. So they shoot for 3 days. They're
Right.
allowed approximately 12-hour days, which we're still trying to preserve some sense of economy. On the fourth day, you deliver your rough cut. On the fifth day, you deliver your fine cut. Sixth day, it's like
Wow.
your locked cut. Then you go into online editing, and then you deliver on day eight. Yeah, and in terms of the in-kind support, it's like the industry up here really does get behind like all the teams. Like all of the major funders, the Directors Guild of Canada is still our presenting sponsor, and Telefilm Canada, they're our main federal funding body here for like film and stuff. And Creative BC, which is like the provincial, our state version of that, they fund us. All of the unions and guilds are behind us. There's about at least like 50K in kind, like gear and services, including legal clearances and all that help out each team. So
That's
so
awesome.
that's what it's going to become. We produce 6 films a year out of around 150 projects that submit. It's an externally juried process.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what the program is. And
That's so yeah, no, that's fantastic.
and totally forgot. You said, how did I get involved with it? Uh,
Right.
I know I applied to Crazy8s like back in the day. I applied unsuccessfully several times. I made it into the quarterfinals like one time
That's awesome.
as a filmmaker myself, and it's been part of the indie ecology. I want to say up here for quite some time. It's one of the things that you do like to kind of
Right.
start your career or kind of get to a different place or something like that. And then they had various people in this hot seat, in the executive director hot seat, for quite a while. And then about 4 years ago, on the street was the position was open. So they had put
That's
out a
awesome.
call. I applied. I did a panel interview with a bunch of board people. And they were like, yeah, your resume is okay. You seem like a solid sucker for the cause. And I say that with all the love. Okay, all the love.
Absolutely.
They were like, okay, you want to do it? I'm like, okay.
I don't think people realize how much running a nonprofit, how hard running a nonprofit is. It's constantly, to make it work, you're constantly on the phone with funders, and funding priorities change. And it's just like you have to wear like a million different hats. It's tough. But I think the best part about you, Grace, on doing it is that you have a filmmaker, you're a filmmaker yourself, so you know what it's like to be on the other side of applying. Can you talk a little bit about like how you got involved in filmmaking? Was it something you knew early on that you wanted to do, or was it a passion like in college, or how did you find a love for filmmaking?
Yeah, so in terms of just, I started off as a lover of film to begin with, a bit of a geeky child for sure. And I was the kind of person who would actually go to the movie theater by myself.
That's awesome.
Like, yeah, if I
I'm
ever
with
could,
you.
right? Yeah, if I ever
Heck yeah.
could. Yeah, obviously, like below a certain age, I had to go with my mom.
Right.
Like, my poor mom suffered a lot because she had to, I was always bugging her to go see, yeah, whatever.
Not
And then
another art house movie, Grace.
well, no, like I totally went to see all the popular stuff, like Indiana Jones. Like, I totally dated myself. Like I saw all the things. I remember
That's
lining up for
awesome.
Star Wars with family.
That's so
When,
cool.
and by that, episode four. Okay, episode four. Yeah, let's just be clear. This is episode four, people. Yeah. But back then, it was just Star Wars. Nobody knew that it was going to become this
A
multi-billion-dollar
franchise, right?
franchise. Yeah. But yeah, so I started off that way, and then I got into theater. I became like a theater kid. I was a bit of a glee kid. I did the choir thing, all of that. And then in university, I started taking some scene study classes, like along with my theater acting classes. And that was when I started to get a little bit more interested in it because I realized that it's true to some extent that acting is acting, but
Right.
the process of distributing a live theater product is quite different, and the process of developing it and all that, there's some differences as well. So I became fascinated with the differences, and eventually I grew to can appreciate both. So I got my first agent, I guess, for as a performer probably
That's
sometime in the
awesome.
late 90s. Oh, and here comes my cat. If you see any whiskers, it's just my cat. uh,
Yep.
Sorry,
I've
cat.
got
Yeah,
one of those around.
yeah, no,
They
just
love to be the center of attention.
they really do. And I'm like, dude, just, okay, no. Anyway, yeah. And then I started like doing a bunch of indie stuff, indie theater, indie film. And then eventually I actually started running another short filmmaking contest that the Asian Film Festival locally up
Oh,
here.
cool.
Yeah, it has their own, they had their own annual thing. And so I guess they knew me from the theater world, some of the guys there. And they were like, you know how to produce theater? Do you think you can produce like a short filmmaking contest? And I'm like, I don't freaking know, but I can try. I felt really honored. And then I was like, oh, okay, like
Right.
it's just as hard as like producing theater, possibly harder. Yeah. And then after that, I stepped into more of a role with the larger festival itself, just helping run that. And in the meanwhile, on the side, like I'm also developing as a performer, like I'm still like working in indie, like
That's
whatever it
awesome.
takes, right? Crafty, like PMing, location, you name it, like just doing the stuff. And
Right.
then like you work on more and more different projects. I started to get to know the people that ran other contests and programs up here and that, just da, da, da. And yeah, after all of that experience, I think I was with the Asian Film Festival. I think I ran it for like maybe 5 years, and I ran their contest for about three.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then now here I am. I've been with Crazy8s now. This would be my third year, I want to say, third year.
That's great,
So
Grace.
the life.
That's fantastic. So, what do you see as a market for short film? So, when the teams finish, are they like using it as like a calling card for their website? Are they putting it on Vimeo? Is it a market festival? Is there a market? Are there people coming up to buy films or like invest, agents, that kind of thing? So what do you see as the afterlife for the teams of Crazy Eight and their short films after the festival is over?
The short answer is definitely festivals.
Yeah,
Festivals is like a natural home for shorts, and still
absolutely.
is, still is. Crazy8s has historically done a lot of genre stuff, whether it's horror or something. So it fits into some kind of niche. So a lot of them eventually also, in terms of OTT, they end up finding a home on Dust or Alter.
Okay.
or Shutter, like that kind of thing. So definitely beyond the festival window, usually a couple of years, 2, 3 years. Some of the films will find a home, like on OTT. The occasional time as well, like some of the public broadcasters up here, like CBC, or some of the other Canadian outlets, like they will actually purchase. Yeah, they will do purchase short form
That's
content.
awesome.
Yeah, so the only caveat is that, particularly if it's a public broadcaster, because of the rules up here regarding
Right.
Canadian content, like we do need to make sure, no, we do need to make sure that our films comply with that. And what that means is that all of the key creatives like do need to be either Canadian citizens or permanent residents of Canada.
Okay.
And so that means like your director has to be your producers, all of your producers. That includes your PM, your line producer. If you go to the website for the federal government up here, that details like what's required to qualify for CanCon, like your eyes will just glaze over and then bug out. Like this is like it's crazy. Um, but yeah, so that's usually where they live. And sometimes like a lot of filmmakers in terms of their track, some of them do want to eventually do a feature. So
Right.
Telefilm Canada, like the aforementioned one of the federal funding bodies, like they do actually have a micro budget like film fund called Talent
That's
to
awesome.
Watch. And so a lot of Crazy Eights alumni do apply for that if that's the direction that they want to go in, and some of them do get it and then they move on from there. Some of them just move straight into episodic directing. Or there was a writer director from a couple of years ago, he ended up on in the writer's room of a series up here called Allegiance, and it's in season 2 now.
That's
Another
awesome.
director writer ended up in the writer's room of another series called Sight Unseen, like I think it's a CTV series or something. So they do, I guess, because the program is recognized, like it's a designated industry partner with Telefilm, so it's recognized as a place where people do go to level up a little bit or get a different kind of experience. So yeah, so that's usually where it goes. In terms of the overall market, like I still
Yeah.
think for shorts, especially for the artsy version of a short, that 10-second TikTok. I'm not even kidding. It's like the TikTok market is crazy, apparently. People, the production companies are spending tens of thousands of dollars on TikTok content for their clients. And I totally get it. But if it's for this kind of stuff, I
Right.
still don't feel the adoption is quite there. For animated
Yeah.
shorts, yes, maybe. Obviously, death and robots, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, so it's a bit of a challenge, but I feel that the strongest suit is just in giving the filmmakers the experience level and the confidence mentally to just take it from there themselves. And the product does have some kind of life beyond that. So it
Right.
does, it's a bit of a calling card as well. And some do use it as a proof of concept. Yeah.
That's awesome. So I spoke with Jenny Lee Gilmore, who was a filmmaker at Gemfest
Yeah.
this
It's
year,
great.
and she's fantastic. And one of the things she talked about was how British Columbia is given secondary is has to look up to some of the states, like Ontario, in terms of funding. Do you feel that way? That sort of like British Columbia is looked upon differently for whatever reason than some of the eastern provinces, and why do you think that is?
I, I short answer, yes.
Yeah,
I do believe the same thing. And because I've been in this space now for at least 20 years, like at least 20 years, like it's enough time to see trends, if you want trends.
exactly.
Yeah, and historically that is the case. The fact is that the population in Canada is not huge anyway, compared to, but definitely compared to the US.
Right.
And the majority, and there are certainly are a lot more people out east, say in Ontario, Quebec, and that. And I think that sometimes the funding bodies feel that because there are more people out there, that maybe more of the money should go, and they're not necessarily considering that proportionate disproportionately to the size of the population in BC, there might be
Right.
possibly a reasonably high level or percentage or ratio of talent and ability to yes. So there is that. So I'm not telling the funders what to do, but that appears to be that perception a little bit. And secondly, up here in Canada, there's two official languages, English and French,
Right.
and a recognition, of course, for Indigenous language and Indigenous languages. Sorry. And recently, Telefilm has allowed, I guess, content to be produced under its flag uh, of other languages beyond English, French, and Indigenous languages. So they're all steps. But there is definitely a big push to preserve or to showcase French Canadian culture. And so a lot
Okay.
of funding does go there as well.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, which completely makes sense. And I fully recognize that it is a very unique culture. You can't say that it's French. It totally isn't, right? It's definitely its own
Right.
thing. They got their own thing going on, and it's as much worth preserving as or showcasing as anything else. But unfortunately, what that ends up with, given limited funding pool, is the West, I will say it, gets the shaft a little bit.
Yeah.
Not it a lot. And there are sometimes
Okay.
people that just move to Ontario and do the CFC program. There's like bigger name filmmaking programs and that over there simply because all the instructors, the network over there will just plug you right into that system that they've got, which is much more of a pipeline than what we've got up here. Like here, we're more of a service industry. Like a lot of our films are not necessarily a Canadian product, or yeah, or if they are, they're very low budget. Like we're talking like 2 million or less,
Right.
and that's 2 million Canadian, not 2 million US. Yeah, yeah, and so it is what it is.
The best part I think about Crazy 8 then is that it's supporting BC filmmakers. Like it's not taking on the whole mission of Canada. It's saying, hey, we may have faced some challenges here, but we're all going to rise together and we're going to support each other. And I think that's probably what you've seen over the years is that it's helped bring BC filmmakers together in a way that probably wouldn't happen without the competition.
Yes, I would definitely say that. Yeah, like Crazy 8s is one of those. I guess it people originally might have thought that it was a bit of a flashpoint, and maybe
Right.
they weren't sure if it would last as such. Because the industry, if you stick around the industry long enough, you know that it's cyclical. It goes up, it goes down, it goes around.
Exactly.
It always comes back, and never the same, but it comes back. But yeah, Crazy 8s has just kept going, and I believe that's a big part of it. Is that like here in BC, partly because of maybe the size of our size,
Right.
not in terms of like money making, like we're probably like at one point I think we were second to LA or something, like in terms of
That's
just
awesome.
production. So not in terms of the money, but just in terms of how many people are here. It just tends to mean that like a lot of people do more than one thing. Like for example, if you're a grip, like you might work in theater as well as in film.
Right.
If you do casting, you might, if you're an actor, you might go all over the place. A lot of people wear multiple hats simply because that's just how it is out here. We just got to help each other out. We just got to work with each other. So that just all comes together in something like Crazy 8s. And everybody's just, yeah, we know what we got. We're proud of it. We want to help each other out. Let's do this thing. Yeah. And like a lot of the unions and guilds recognize that a lot of people that work on Crazy 8s, if they're not already in a union or guild, they will probably become a member soon enough, and they just want
That's
to keep
great.
that going. Yeah. Yeah.
So, Grace, there's roughly 144 people out there who got a letter of disappointment from Crazy Eights. What would you tell them in terms of generally like what to work on? If you wish, from your perspective, when somebody's applying and unfortunately you can't accept all of them, what do you wish they knew about their application and maybe how to improve next year so they can be a part of the competition?
To want to start, like for the past couple of years at least, like we've tried to tell the jurors of each stage of each pass, so there's quarterfinals, the semifinals, that kind of thing. We've asked the jurors to have notes, to leave notes.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, so that if say so whether you move on to the next stage or not, there might be
Right.
notes available. Yeah, and then after that stage is completed, we do make the jury public. We announce who they are publicly, so it's not like they can't be approached on the not on the street. People do sometimes. I have heard this. I have heard that sometimes people just corner a juror in some event or something, and kind of go, "Hey, yeah, so do you remember
I
this
apply.
judge? Do you remember?"
Wow.
So there is that. There is that. But what I would love for them to know is, firstly, there are some people who have made the finalists, who have made it in the top six. Some of them tried 6 times, 7 times
Right.
before they got there. And each successive time, they would ask for feedback, they would hone, they would do things, right? Eventually they got there. So one of them, I mentioned someone who's in the writer's room now for a series up here, that was the case with her. She
That's
applied to
awesome.
Crazy 8 6 times. She finally got it on the seventh time. Made the film. It got into festivals. She did another film writing program. She got into the writer's room, and there you go. You know what I mean? Before that, she was more doing producing, like PMing and stuff. And then she just transitioned into this, like through Crazy Eights. So I'd like to say, don't give up necessarily. And Crazy Eights is not the only game in town. If you want to try for it with like all the other filmmaking programs that are available, please try for it. I believe that everyone has a story or stories. And if you have a story, like it needs to be told, go tell it. The other thing I'd say is I would encourage people to do is, especially if you make it to at least a semifinal stage where there's a story development phase. So you actually work with a professional story editor for 3 weeks
That's awesome.
to and the table read and all that kind of thing. And you need to have a package, a certain kind of package by that point as well. I just like to say that there are people who come back, who write back to us and say, hey, you know what, thank you. Like we didn't make it to the top 6, but we were semifinalists, we were top 12, and we applied to BC Arts Council, we applied around, we made our film. Or we took your feedback, we did this other filmmaking program, we got in. You know what I mean? So that's what I
That's
would
great.
encourage you. Just use anything that you've learned, good and the bad, about yourself and your project, and make your film. Tell your story. Believe in your art, in your stories, and in yourself. Just go do it. We need
That's
that.
very inspirational. That's so inspirational, Grace. So, if you could have a crystal ball and look at 5 years from now, what do you think Crazy Eights looks like? And have you thought about the role of AI in the process? Do you envision taking on AI films, or is that something that you want to keep, maybe have a separate part for that, or you're not ready for anything like that yet? Let's see what the next few years bring.
Okay, so broader picture for sure. In terms of Crazy Eights, definitely see the wish is and the direction is to have the program grow in terms of the kind and level of support that it offers. So that includes like the workshops and the mentoring and all that kind of stuff. And also, let's face it, money, like cold hard cash money, like per team would also be nice. Yeah,
Right.
for sure. I'm not sure if it can really expand very much beyond BC at the moment. We do sometimes have filmmakers like from outside of the Vancouver area, the immediate Vancouver area, who apply and who get in. But in terms of the AI piece, that's something that we're actually talking about with our legal team right now, just in terms of what that might look like. If and let's face it, AI is here. It's
Yep.
here. It's not going
Completely.
away. It's not going away.
Nope.
It's just a matter of how we can use it in a way that is mindful and respectful of artists, and how we can actually bake that into some kind of process so that people don't get shafted, taken advantage of, uh, paid and what they should get paid, not credited what they should be credited. Yeah, so this is really what it's about right now. So all I'll say is it's not going to be next year, right? But we might start introducing a language that says that AI, basically, do not use AI, at this
Right.
moment, because that's not the purpose of this program. The program is to make you a better like slash director, producer, writer, so that in future you can go train your AI better. So go make your own AI movie. By all means, we're not saying AI is bad or anything. We're just saying the purpose of this program is not that.
Right.
This is
Oh,
not the of your development to be using
yeah.
AI
Then you
right
want to
now.
be using AI. Right.
Yeah.
Completely agree with you, Grace. I feel like it doesn't really get discussed. It's a tool, and it'll be, hopefully people can use it as a tool in certain ways and not use it in other ways. But to be like knee jerkingly afraid of it, I don't feel like it's the right move. So it sounds like you're completely on the right step, and I'm excited to see how, if you end up incorporating it, what that looks like. So Grace is an indie film podcast. Love hyping other people's projects. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Is there an indie film or filmmaker that you wish more people knew about? Is there like somebody from BC that you love talking about that you wish, gosh, I wish more people saw their films?
There's probably more than one, I want to say, but in terms of how I see it now, yeah, yeah. There's a filmmaker. There's a local filmmaker. Do you know an actor called Sandra Oh?
I do. I
I-
do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So Sandra Oh is local. She is originally from British Columbia, and the director that I have in mind, Sandra Oh was in one of her first films.
Okay.
Yeah, her name is Mina Shum. The director's name is
Okay.
Mina Shum, and she is also a local filmmaker. And she's just been steadily like she's pumped out babies and films
I
over the
love
past
that.
over the past little while, and she's just steadily doing it. You know what I mean? And she just flies just a little under the radar. Like the stuff she makes, yeah, can con, I feel, but also like but it's solid. But it just doesn't have that sex appeal, I guess,
Right.
to really get it to whatever level that needs to. I think like one of the producers of Honora actually is from British Columbia.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah. So we've got the people here doing stuff, but it's just, yeah. So Mina's working on, I think it's approximately 9 million or something, like the budget for her hoped for next feature, and that would be like almost like the biggest budget feature that she's ever actually worked on,
That's great.
and she's pumped out kids and stuff. Yeah, so all I'm saying is she's still doing it. She didn't give up. She didn't take a break of 15 years or anything. And
Right.
I just wish that more people like that would just get like more distro or even international distro, man. It's just what I got to tell you is in terms of the diaspora, the Asian diaspora, we're not always supportive of each other's work. It's we don't really care about what you guys got going on over there because it's not relevant to like us over here. And I'm like, no,
Right.
it is relevant. It's international. Are we not raised on Netflix right now? It's let's
Yeah,
not be afraid
exactly.
of subtitles. So you over there in Southeast Asia, do not be afraid of the subtitles. Watch this film in English. It might be worth your while. Anyway,
This has been such an inspirational discussion. I think anybody listening will be inspired to go make their film no matter what. Grace Chin, executive director of Crazy Eights, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. This has been fantastic, and I'm cheering for Canadian cinema, specifically British Columbia cinema. I think what you're doing is great, and I'm so excited to see what happens over the next 8 days.
thank you so much. Yeah, and thank you so much for having me.